Again, with the 253-page bill that just came out less than 48 hours ago, and another several thousand-page bill on the horizon with the health care, this is a lot to take in, and I think two adjectives that come to my mind is breathtaking and stunning when I look at the resolution authority. And I think on both sides of the aisle, I think there is bipartisan concern about the unprecedented level of power that seems to be centralized under this. So it seems to me prudent that we would exercise serious due diligence on the part of establishing what the chairman and the president have called a resolution authority to break up systemically risky institutions. And here's my question. The proposal looks to me like we're codifying, and I'm sure you've gotten this comment before, of what our constituents were outraged about last year when Congress passed TARP, except under this proposal, we, the Congress, wouldn't have to take a vote each time an institution needs a bailout, and the bill would give the FDIC the authority to extend credit on the backs of taxpayers whenever it wants. Do you think that's an accurate characterization, or am I wrong? And that's for anyone on the panel.
No, I don't think that's an accurate characterization. I think the bill carefully constrains what we can and can't do, and we clearly cannot provide any kind of assistance, nor can the Fed, I might add, on an individual basis to an individual failing firm. There is a process for a systemic support if you had a major destabilizing event where the government needs to step in and stabilize the system, where even healthy institutions cannot access liquidity. But no, the whole point of this is to make sure that the shareholders and creditors are the ones that take losses, and there's an orderly wind down. You may need to have some temporary liquidity support into a bridge financial institution as you broke it up and sold it off. But again, I think those short-term liabilities are already fully secured, so that would not be imposing any losses on the receivership that wouldn't otherwise be obligated, whether it's a bankruptcy process or the statutory resolution process. And I also think, based on our experience with bridge banks, that those preserve value and minimize losses if you can maintain those short-term funding relationships. So this is not a bailout mechanism. This is a wind-down mechanism. And again, we think it's very important that that be clear and understood. And
let me follow up then with the Republican alternative that several of my colleagues are offering. It's clear that bankruptcy is the end game for those that make mistakes or the risky banks, and that's what our plan does, to strengthen market discipline by making it clear that a failing institution's creditors and counterparts would bear the cost of the financial mistakes, not the taxpayers. And I know I had heard Treasury Secretary Geithner earlier say that he didn't believe that this would fall on the back of the taxpayers, but there's a certain amount of incredulity on the part of us as members of Congress, especially when we hear that $81 billion that's already been forwarded to the automakers. We can expect that the taxpayers won't be paid back. And I think that we are very concerned when we look at the wind down authority and wondering how is that a speedier resolution of a company than what would find in bankruptcy?
Well, I think the bankruptcy process is what we've had, and it led to all of these bailouts. I think if you
but we haven't had perhaps a modification of that would anticipate.
Well, I think, Congresswoman, actually, we don't differ profoundly in where we want to end up. We believe the claims priority that should apply to the receivership process, which is what we have now for insured banks, is much along the lines of what you have in bankruptcy.
I think that may be accurate, that we may not differ in where we want to end up, other than authority. Who has that power? Who has authority? And I think that's the real concern here, is that taking away power from the Congress and giving that over to the executive. And again, I think Chairman or Mr. Kanjorski asked a very good question earlier of the Treasury Secretary when he said, where in the Constitution would you find that authority? Mr. Kanjorski said he didn't believe that Congress even had the authority to devolve to the executive of the tax-paying function, or the tax assessing function. And I would agree with Mr. Kanjorski in that. On an unrelated question, this would be for Chairman Bair. On October 7th, I sent you a letter requesting examination of the role of ACORN, what they play in helping banks satisfying their Community Reinvestment Act obligations. And as you know, ACORN's earned a reputation with the public for extremely poor systemic controls that have led to persistent unethical behavior, repeated disregard for voter registration and other federal and state laws. So as chairman of the Federal Financial Institutions Examination Council, I requested that you and your fellow council members conduct a thorough examination of the issue and prohibit financial institutions from receiving CRA credit by donating to or partnering with Acorn. Have you seen my letter? Are you willing to consider such an examination?
I have seen your letter. We're in the process of consulting with our fellow regulators and giving you a good
Do you have any idea when I'd anticipate a reply?
The gentlelady's time has expired.
We will try to do it as promptly as possible. We'll give you a thoughtful response, though.
And if the gentlelady
Thank you
has
very
additional
much.